And when you truly want something, the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. If you've read the book The Alchemist, you would know where this profound statement comes from. Well, in today's video, through this simple art piece over here, which I've drawn,
I'm a creative genius.
we'll be going into a bit of a deep dive into some of the key themes which I find to be very interesting within the book, and why I believe Santiago's journey in of itself is also a form of alchemy. So now, let's get started, right? Now, according to the book, we are introduced to the church, right? So this church over here obviously represents a place of truth, if you may put it that way, right? However, the way they explain the church in the book is kind of significant because they say that it is an abandoned church, right? It's a place of ruin where Santiago goes there to sleep. Now, sleep, according to my understanding, represents him being unconscious. So he's still in his unconscious state. As he's within the place of truth, he starts to have a dream of his treasure. And within this dream, it's not just a dream, but rather he's being told to go to Egypt so that he can be able to pursue getting this treasure, right? And the interesting thing about this dream, it is also recurring. It's not just a dream that happened once in a while and then, all of a sudden it's no longer there. It's a recurring dream, and my understanding of this could also represent his intuition, guiding him towards the path that he has to take. Obviously, my boy leaves the church now, goes through this journey whereby he obviously meets the king, right? And this is obviously the king who says,
When you truly want something, the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it.
But my understanding of what the king could also represent, because the dream was almost like distant, he was a bit ignorant towards the dream. The king gave him conviction, right? Because after he had met the king, that's when he started to consider it the most, to say, this could potentially be something that I can achieve. So the king is there to obviously give him conviction. On top of that, he even gives him Urim and Tumim as a guiding principle. I don't know, But the king is there to obviously reinforce his faith within this dream, I guess, right? And obviously he has to sell his sheep whatsoever. He goes to another town where he gets robbed. So this obviously would represent him being robbed. They took my boy's bag over here, you see. But my understanding of this is the first sign where Santiago sees that it's not going to be an easy journey. So he's almost, because when he was approaching it, he approached it through a bit of a naive sense, you know what I mean? But after his situation here where he got robbed, a bit of his naivety died. He started to understand that it's not going to be as easy as he may have assumed, right? Cool. But here's where it gets interesting. He starts obviously going to work, right? So he gets a job at the crystal shop. And obviously when he gets there, because of his energy, man, because of his aura, if we put it that way, there's progress within the place. They start to see more customers flow in. And he's also a bit comfortable in the place. He sees that, okay, I'm making bag even way more than what I may have made or what I've lost. You know what I mean? And obviously, as is within these crystal shops, thoughts start to come back to say, maybe I could potentially go back to where I come from and, buy more sheep and I'll just be comfortable. You know what I mean? But now, this crystal shop, as much as obviously it also played its role in his journey, could also represent comfort being masked as progress, because he's in a comfortable place and he's assuming that he's making so much progress, which could also be a bit of a killer of his dream, if I may put it that way. So comfort masked as progress. But fortunately, because he's obviously guided by his intuition and his willpower is more, he obviously overcomes this. My boy takes on a journey. He goes into the desert. Which represents uncertainty. So he's very much uncertain when he's within the desert, right? Because it's a dry place. It's a place where there's not really that much motion happening. You know what I mean? But through this uncertainty, it sort of strips away something within him. It strips away his need for control. It strips away his desire to constantly have things under control, and he learns to trust in the unknown. Until obviously he gets to a place which is the oasis. The oasis. And in the oasis, obviously, my boy, gets a young honey there, Fatima, and he starts to fall in love. Cool. It's cool there, it's obviously flowing and all. But now he gets taught a lesson on love that is not based on attachments. Love that is not, you don't have to hold on to something just because you love it. You have to learn how to love from a place of, purpose or something like that. Love. Okay, this thing is abandoning me. What's happening now? Love with no attachments. It's cool. So he learns love with no attachments because to a certain extent he was starting to assume that, okay, maybe, I need to just stay here, and just settle, you know what I mean? Only to find out that it's going to meet this guy. Now here's where it gets a bit interesting for me, because him meeting the alchemist could represent something which is so profound, because I think the alchemist represents his higher self. It represents Santiago's integrated self, and by that I mean that him having overcome his fear, him having overcome his doubts, him having fully immersed himself into his shadow self and overcame that, his higher self. So the alchemist could obviously be representing his higher self, and the alchemist acts as a mirror. Instead of him just giving Santiago the answers that he's looking for, he points him back towards himself. And obviously Santiago follows the journey, or continues his journey with the alchemist towards the pyramids. But when he gets here, where he assumes that, okay, now the journey is finally done, he gets faced with his last difficulty, whereby he realizes that that's not where the treasure is. And instead, he gets confronted by these guys who also beat him up to a pulp, and he realizes that the journey was where I actually started. Now, this could also represent this whole idea of the arrival fallacy, where you climb up this mountain and you realize there isn't really anything fulfilling within this, or you pursue something for so long only to find out that it isn't really anything that you truly want to pursue, and it leads you back to where you truly started. But the interesting thing is that the version of him that goes back to the church to dig up for the treasure is no longer the version of him that started the whole journey. So maybe the journey in of itself, in fact, the journey in of itself was also a process of alchemy. It was him changing, him transforming, as Alchemist is described within the book as the process of turning lead into gold. It may also mean that through Santiago's journey, it was turning a certain version of himself into a different version of himself, so that he can be able to realize his personal legend.